Hey guys, what is up? It is your friendly neighborhood who's here back again with another Isaac Breaking Run. And this time we're going to start with the Parasite split shot, where each shot that is split off of the main shot does 1/4 damage, but is predictable, as opposed to Cricket's body, which does half times 4, but is very unpredictable. I think they're both really awesome items, and I actually have no problem at all with either of them. I do, however, have a problem with rooms where enemies just fuck you up real hard and you can't do shit about it, like what just happened to me. That's okay, though. We made it out without actually dying, literally dying, so that's sweet. Got a Spirit Heart, which I obviously won't grab yet, and I wanted to take this episode to talk about something kind of, I guess, game related, not necessarily game design related, but just game related in general. And the thing that I want to talk about is the idea of copycatting. It seems to be this incredibly, I mean, firstly, let me preface this. The people who complain about copycatting really generally are not very good at the games, if they do complain about copycatting. And let me elaborate on what I mean about copycatting. So, the idea in a card game is, this is a complaint that does happen surprisingly frequently in a card game. Whether it be a TCG, like Magic the Gathering, and Hearthstone is a CCG and has plenty of this complaining as well. But it's basically the complaint that people just net deck and don't come up with their own decks. Now, I agree, there is some merit to the idea that it is boring to see the exact same decks all day. But the idea of a net deck being bad because it's copied is such a naive approach to the entire situation, right? And the reason I'm saying that is that basically the way it breaks down is that in a game, any game with a system of any series of choices, right, that can reach a certain conclusion, there will be a best. That's a fact, okay? The only way that there wouldn't be a best is if these things didn't have, like, either perfect balance, which people would, first of all, perfect balance is not necessarily impossible in theory, but in practice it seems impossible. So perfect balance, ignore that as a solution. The other solution would be making your choices not matter, which would mean that there is no best choices, but at the same time you then lose the identity of your choices mattering. So it's a, you're choosing to make your game have this semblance of balance by removing the impact of choices, right? And those are the ways to get rid of it. Other than that, you're going to have a best choice or a best set of choices, depending on the context, right? That's just how it works. That's how games work. And what a net deck is, or what, being a copycat or a cookie cutter spec in World of Warcraft or something like that, what those are the best choices, right? If not the actual best choices, they're still good enough choices. They're like top tier choices, if they're not explicitly the best, but in most cases they are in fact the best, right? So when people complain about people net decking and not building their own decks, one thing they just fail to realize is that the reason people are net decking is because it's the best deck, right? The reason you're copy pasting a deck off the internet is because it's the best. Are you trying to win? If the answer is yes, you want something that you can claim is good enough to win in a vast majority of situations. I don't know if you know this, but if something is considered the best, then it's going to have the highest win rate, right? So you're going to net deck. That's just how it works. Now, it is cool in card games, there's so many options. There generally isn't a single best deck. There are a selection of best decks, which are all crammed into this category of net decks. Once the casual police have shown up and made everybody get in the car or something, they're all considered net decks. And the thing is, as well, people don't seem to realize every net deck began as an individual's deck, right? Now, let me elaborate further on why, on the process of a deck, you know, a deck of, say, Hearthstone. A Hearthstone deck goes from being just a deck that somebody has made to being a net deck. The progression is very, very simple, right? Step 1, somebody creates the deck. Step 2, they test the deck. Step 3, they conclude the deck has a high win rate. Step 4, other people begin playing the deck. Step 5, it is now a net deck. Congratulations, you've now created a net deck. Right? So the reason you don't see individual decks, especially when there's a break between, I guess, new cards coming out, or, you know, none of the new cards that came out, or very few of the new cards that came out, are impactful to the metagame, the reason all you see are net decks is because there's nothing that's changed. Nobody's come up with an innovation, right? If you want to come up with an innovation, go for it. But the thing is, if your deck doesn't have a high win rate, nobody's going to play it. That's why it's not a net deck, right? And also, no offense to anybody intended here. I'm not intending offense, but at the same time, it'll probably seem offensive. If your question is, why don't people play insert deck archetype that you've had some amount of success with here? The answer most of the time is not that they just never thought of it. The answer quite often is it was tested and turns out it's not good. Because especially in a card game where you have a somewhat limited amount of resources, it is a lot higher choice-wise, but the problem is that even with more choices, you run into this issue of, like, you have more choices, but there's less room for them to exist, right? Like in an action-type game, in a real-time game, rather than a turn-based strategy one, there's a lot of ways that a specific thing, a specific point can, or game design decision, there's a lot of ways that it can go, there's a lot of ways that it can be used, and it's got a lot of variance to it. In a card game, it's just a card, right? So if your question is, hey, why aren't people playing Captain Greenskin? Well, the answer is, he's bad. It's not, oh, well, nobody ever tried playing Captain Greenskin. Now, yeah, sometimes cards can slip through the cracks. Absolutely. Alright? It happens. It happens in Magic quite often. I don't think it can happen in Hearthstone yet. There's not quite enough cards for it to really happen. Oh, well, this is incredible. There's just not enough cards yet for it to happen, you know? So, chances are, if you're talking about Hearthstone, and your question is, you know, why don't people play this card? The answer is, most likely it sucks. Now, the thing is, when I said cards can slip through the cracks, and, you know, it happens in Magic, I'm going to expand on that a little further. There was a deck that I played a lot that people tended to hate, and hate me for it. Jesus Christ, I'm really bad at getting good rerolls. I actually want a health up now. So there was a deck that I played quite a lot on Magic the Gathering Online, around the time frame of before, God, what Pro Tour was it? I don't, the Pro Tour, the modern Pro Tour where Eggs won. In the time frame about a month or so before the Pro Tour, I was playing the shit out of this deck called Eggs, which I've commented on before, sort of kind of explained it a little bit before, in this series, but I didn't go that in depth. So let me elaborate a bit further. Basically, Eggs was a deck. The creation of Eggs as a deck. There was a deck called Eggs that existed in Extended, which was the format before Modern existed, which was essentially the step between Legacy and Standard. Standard is the past 2 years of cards, roughly. The format changed, but I don't remember exactly what's... I mean, I know exactly what's different. I don't know how to really articulate that to people who don't play Magic, though. So, Standard past 2 years. Legacy, all cards printed with a ban list, right? Extended was, I think, what was it, past 7 years or something? Absurd like that. Let's check out the shop. Well, blue map is quite good. And so Extended was the step between Standard and Legacy before the introduction of Modern, and Modern is every card with the Modern card border, which is Mirrodin / 8th edition and forward. And that's Modern, right? And so in Extended, there was this deck called Eggs, which used these cards that literally were called Eggs, right? Like they had a name and then egg, right? Like I think one was Dark Water Egg, for example. And there were a bunch of them, right? And they all did a specific thing. They all were artifacts that were, I believe they cost 1 mana to play, and then, right, I have Dark Bum. What am I doing? They cost 1 mana to play, and then 2 mana to activate, any color for both. And then they turn that 2 mana upon activation. They get sacrificed, and they create a 2 mana of the color combination depending on which egg they are, right? And so that was the basis of the Eggs deck, right? And these artifacts allowed you to do a lot of crazy shit, because it allows you to obviously just cycle through them for essentially free, right? And so, because you're not losing mana when you actually do the cycling part. And then you can actually utilize them with a bunch of other things, all mashed into this deck to create a shitload of mana, draw a shitload of cards, and then kill your opponent via Storm. So just a card that deals... I think they used Brain Freeze. I want to say it was Brain Freeze, which just mills cards off the top of your opponent's deck based on how many spells had been played that turn, and that was that, right? So you do this a lot until you can mill their entire deck, and if you try drawing from an empty deck in Magic, you lose, right? That was the old Eggs deck, I believe. I'm pretty sure it won with Brain Freeze. I don't quite remember, though. But that was the old Eggs deck, and people knew about it. It was a semi-popular Extended deck. Apparently it had some issues with consistency, which is interesting. But regardless, then I thought to myself, I saw an article. This was about when Modern was introduced and Extended was pretty much on the way out at the end of its life, right? And so I saw an article about best Extended decks of all time, or coolest Extended decks of all time, something like that, on Star City Games. And I saw Eggs on there, and I was like, huh, this looks neat. And then I looked on all of the forums and stuff for like a modern version of the Eggs deck, right? And you know, I saw like some beginnings, some people being like, hey, I might have something here. I got problems with this, this, and this. You know, it doesn't have great matchups, etc. And then I went with that, right? You know, I started from those resources, and then I built upon it, right? And it seems as if somebody else did pretty much the exact same thing at around the same time, but we'll get to that. So I extended on that, and basically I changed it a bit. So I used, because the regular-ass Eggs deck from Extended didn't use Krark Clan Ironworks, which is a 4-mana artifact that allows you to sacrifice another artifact to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. So the original extended Eggs deck didn't use Crook Clan Ironworks, but there was a deck when it existed in Standard that used Crook Clan Ironworks to very good effect to essentially do a similar kill where you just kind of do a lot of stuff, and then your opponent dies at the end of your turn. And so I used Crook Clan Ironworks, so I took that for inspiration and tried to figure out how I could move that into this Eggs deck and make it work in Modern, and then I did that. And I had some unreal win rate on Magic Online for a good chunk of time. And then it turns out Pro Tour's coming up, and there is, I believe there was literally one Eggs deck at the Pro Tour, right? There might have been another, but he didn't make it to the final day. He definitely didn't make it to the top, like top 50. I don't think. I can't imagine that he did if there was another Eggs deck, because I didn't hear about anybody aside from this dude's Eggs deck, and he won the Pro Tour. And his Eggs deck, very interestingly, didn't have Crook Clan Ironworks. However, after he won the Pro Tour with it, I'm gonna, well, yeah, I guess I'll take that. That's fine. Yeah, this is good. I like that, and then I'm gonna we did it. So he won the Pro Tour, and then obviously, when a deck wins the Pro Tour, it is so proven that it is a good deck that everybody net decks it, right? Bringing it back. I kind of got lost in my tangent. I'm returning though. Okay, it's okay. So people begin to net deck that deck a lot. And what's interesting is that the most common Eggs deck that I saw after the Pro Tour on Magic Online specifically, which Magic Online, I mean, I don't want to talk about it anymore. RIP in pieces, but it you know, it had a good run. But so on Magic Online, basically, there were a lot of Eggs decks, but they realized, right? So in Paper Magic, your time is essentially just the entire time of the round, right? And then slow play punishments and things like that are given out on a case-by-case basis, and there's no like chess timer, right? And if you're familiar with chess, you understand that when you're playing chess, you have a specific timer, as does your opponent, and if you run out of time, then you lose unless a specific set of conditions are met, such as your opponent had literally no way to win. Maybe they had exactly a king left and that was it, right? They can't win with just a king. So if you run out of time and they just have a king, then it's a draw. But regardless, it's basically you run out of time, you lose, done, right? Dunskies. Easy peasy to understand. And Paper Magic doesn't have that. I think it maybe should, but it is more stuff that you need in order to play the game outside of the physical cards, and WotC doesn't really like that idea. So, on Magic Online, however, there is that chess timer with pretty much the exact same thing. You run out of time, you lose. That's it, right? And the time is ticking down whenever you have what is called priority, which means when you are making a decision in the game. And the way it knows is that between decisions you pass priority, and after both players pass priority, then the thing happens, whatever is on the stack happens, or if it's in a phase and there's nothing on the stack and both players pass priority, it moves to the next phase. And it's a very easy system, but it's cool. And so if you run out of time, you lose. And Eggs, as a deck, frequently, as noted in the Pro Tour, would take, you know, the whole game to win. Like, the whole game. So the final turn in an Eggs deck, at least in the version that won the Pro Tour, the one without Crook Clan Ironworks, in order to win, the winning turn would probably take anywhere around half hour or more, at least when played by this player specifically. whose name continues to escape me, and I apologize. But the turns would take forever, right? So when people started playing it on Magic the Gathering Online, where if you run out of time, you lose, people figured out you had to win faster, in a execution type faster. And so people started playing the Croc Clan Ironworks version because it just won faster. I personally thought it was just straight better in every single way. Through all my testing of both versions, I found it to just be better. And it's entirely possible that the Pro Tour winner didn't really put that much testing into... I kind of want Hive Mind. I have 2 guppy items. Just gotta find out a way to actually get Hive Mind. Did I blow into this secret room yet? I don't think so. So it's entirely possible that he didn't really test that much before the Pro Tour, or specifically didn't test the eggs deck too much, and just kind of, as a last-minute decision, was like, I'll play the eggs. I'll play eggs, yeah, I'll do this. That's entirely possible. Or maybe he did test, and he found out that in what he projected as the Pro Tour metagame, eggs was just the best choice. The point is, people began net decking, right? And then the innovation of Croc Clan Ironworks became the net deck. That's my point, all right? The innovations will inevitably become net decks. That's just how the progression works. I mostly went on that tangent because I just wanted to jerk myself off and be like, I came up with the Croc Clan Ironworks version first. And then, of course, you know, they banned Second Sunrise, and now here we are today with no fun in Modern or whatever. That's not true. Modern's actually a really cool format. It is the format that if I were to ever actually return to playing Magic to a what do you say? What do you call it? How do you say? If I ever came back to playing a lot of Magic, how about that? I'd be playing Modern for sure. And I do keep up with Modern quite a bit. But it's a sweet format. I'm just scarred because my poor Second Sunrise got banned. So yeah, basically that entire tangent can be summed up with innovations become the net deck. So there you go. So if your complaint is net decks, take a second, think about things, and then realize that no matter what you do, there will... Oh my god. Oh no. No. Oh no. No. I'm sad. I went with Brim instead of the Gupster because the problem with the Gupster is that I don't generate a lot of flies right now. Because, you know, if I just had Mom's Knife, so... Brimstone's just more DPS pretty much across the board, so whatever. So yeah, basically, complaining about net decks is complaining that people want to win, right? That's what it is. And most of the complaints don't come from the fact, like, people who are educated on the topic and understand what a net deck is, or, you know, the complaints come from people who hear the term net deck, right, understand what it means, which is, of course, copy a list from the internet, right, and then they are a casual player who creates their own bad decks. Let's call them bad decks, because let's be realistic here. Most of the people complaining about net decks do, in fact, just make bad decks and then complain about losing. And the complaint isn't actually they're mad that people copy other decks. The complaint is, why is my deck not winning? Right? That's generally where it comes from. It comes from a place of them being upset that they're not winning, rather than upset that the other guy is playing a net deck. It just so happens that quite often, when you're playing a bad homebrew, you're going to lose to net decks. It's just how it works. I actually, so another story. We're going to go on another tangent here. Mostly because I'm pretty much done with the discussion about net decks, aside from the fact that this story centers around it. Basically, at the store I played FNM at, I played FNM for like 2 years straight or something like that. Like every Friday for like 2 years. So I've had enough at this point, I'd say. And also I just haven't really played Magic much because it does cost quite a bit of money. But at FNM, I frequently would not play net decks, right? And if I did play a net deck, I was either borrowing it or it was a cheap net deck, right? Because I never really had money. I still don't fucking have money. But I especially didn't have money in high school. I fucking hate Skolex. Jesus Christ. But, oh, yeah, I'll take that. I'm not gonna take that. It's not worth throwing away 3 more Spiritars for that. Gotta play it a little safe. So at the store that I often went to, there was a guy there who would always play his own homebrews. Kind of like me. He occasionally did spend the money and buy a proven deck, but most of the time it was homebrews. And the funny thing about this guy was that his #1 complaint, every FNM, without fail, this is what would happen in every FNM. He would complain about net decks. Every single Friday. Right? I guess there's no benefit to having no red hearts here. Or very little benefit, I suppose. Fucking hate this goddamn stupid floor. So he'd complain about net decks, right? He'd come to the store. This was around... Shit, I guess Innistrad. I fucking hate this floor! Ugh! There's no reason. That should have... Whatever, I can't even articulate my upset feelings right now. But he'd come to the store. This was around Innistrad. With his, like... I don't even know. It would be like a werewolf deck, right? Not like a good werewolf deck, but like just a werewolf deck. Where his deck was like all the common werewolves, even the really bad ones. And like the what is the stupid moon card? It's like an enchantment where your wolves and werewolves have +1/+0 or something, and then you can sacrifice it to regenerate them or something. It's something along those lines. I don't entirely remember the card because it was really bad. But, you know, he had that deck, right? And then he goes up against, and this was Scar's Innistrad. So, let me clarify that. And he'd go up against me, and around that time frame I jumped decks a lot, but I did play for a good while. I played a Tempered Steel deck. Tempered Steel was a sweet one, where it was a white enchantment for 1 white, and I hate this fucking game. All right, enchantment for 1 white, so 3 mana, enchantment. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. That's it. That's what the card does. That sounds pretty insane, right? Because that's an enchantment. It's just a global effect. It's just there, right? Until it either gets destroyed or, you know, whatever. Most of the time, though, it wouldn't get destroyed. People weren't really packing enchantment hate at the time. They were packing artifact hate, and some of it was incidentally also enchantment hate, but it mostly survived. And so the deck revolved around literally just playing, like, a gigantic pile of low mana cost artifact creatures. And that's it. And all you did was you slapped your creatures on the table, you slap Tempered Steel down, you whip your dick out, and you just let it land on the table and just look them in the eyes, right? That's all you do. That's how the deck worked, right? It's not sexual harassment. It was how the deck worked, I promise. That's what I told the police, and they believed me. So we're gonna roll with that. But, so I was playing Tempered Steel at the time, and he faced me. And I beat the shit out of him. It wasn't even a close contest, right? It was a quick 2-0. both games were like he didn't do anything, right? He played like one werewolf, and then he just fucking died, right? And then he would complain about like mana screw and net decking, and I'm like, dude, play a deck with more rares. Like in Magic, the balance between rarity, card rarity generally is actually like not bad at all. But there is a point where you just gotta be like, you know, play more fucking rares. Like your deck has maybe 2, right? You're allowed to play 4 of any single card, so why wouldn't you be playing 4 of your best rare? It doesn't make sense to me. That just is a bad deck. And he's like, stupid net decker. Ugh. It was a very, very bizarre situation. I didn't really know how to handle it either, because he was one of those people who just got mad salty at like every little thing. And then like, you know, he'd be like, I got fucking mana screwed, and I'm like, nigga, you drew 5 mana, I drew 2 and I beat you. I mean, yeah, my deck's like supposed to, but fucking, come on. You drew 5. Yeah, but I was trying to play my vanilla 6/6 for 6. Like Kinder Catch or something. I'm like, well, even if you did play, you would have lost. That's not a good. That card doesn't do anything. It's really bad. It's a really bad card. I don't want to hear it, NetDecker. I am obviously to some extent exaggerating the situation, but he did on multiple occasions like yell at the top of his lungs and storm out of the building. But those were generally different times, not when he lost to me. But they did happen. Those were things that did happen. But, like, you know, it's such a bizarre thing to me. I don't know, it's like these people that get upset about losing and then intentionally fucking make themselves lose. And I understand, like, if you're a casual player and you don't have money and shit, I've been there. I am there. I'm permanently in that position when it comes to card games. It doesn't matter, though. I still find ways. There's easy ways to solve that riddle, you know? It's not a particularly difficult situation to be in. If you want to win and you don't have a lot of money, you can still find a deck that's really cheap and has a high win rate. Let's look at Hearthstone, for example. Hey, Patron Warrior, wow! Did you know that that deck costs... Shit, how much dust does it cost? It's like 700 or something. As long as you have Blackrock Mountain Adventure, it's like 700 dust. If you're complaining about fucking losing, if you're upset about losing and want to find a way to win, and you're on a budget, spend your 25 goddamn dollars, and congratulations, now you have the deck that everybody claims is overpowered and broken as shit, but don't play themselves because they don't want to for some fucking reason. Because it's not broken and overpowered. Also, the skill floor and skill ceiling are incredible in that deck. But, I digress. My point is, if you are a person who complains about net decks or copycats, you are a person who hates winning. And if you like winning, well, that's the weird thing, is that it sounds like you're a person who hates winning, but then in reality, deep down, you actually clearly like winning, otherwise you wouldn't be complaining about losing, right? So what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to highlight you, this hypothetical person who complains about net decks. I'm trying to highlight your hypocrisy in this circumstance. Which, by the way, hypocrisy is one of the only words that I frequently use that just will never apparently show up without a red squiggly line under it. I don't know why, but every program seems to think hypocrisy is not a word, and then you Google it, and then it turns out that it's a word, and it's been a word forever. But, you know, it just doesn't seem to exist in the databases of programs. There's actually a few words like that, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But I've tried like using, you know, whenever I tweet, whenever I twat, whenever I Twitter, I, you know, type out a tweet, and sometimes I'll just like backtrack through the tweet and like fix things and yada 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 and like make sure I'm not phrasing something wrong. And then sometimes I'm just like, hey, fuck it, just hit the send button, whatever. And then a lot of the times when I just hit the send button, I regret it because I should have proofread slightly. But yeah, so like on Twitter, I'll type out this whole thing, and then I'll be like, fucking something something hypocrisy, and then Twitter will be like, hey, dog, this isn't a word, and I'm like, wait, hypocrisy? That's not a. You don't think that's a word? And then I'll right-click it, and it's like the options are like hippopotamus and stuff. And I'm like, I'm clearly not trying to say hippopotamus. I know how to spell hippopotamus. Probably. Now that I'm thinking about it, I might not know how to spell hippopotamus. Is it 2 P's? It's gotta be. Hippo's 2 P's. But if I'm trying to spell hippopotamus, I know, I can spell hippopotamus. It's clearly not what I was going for. I was going for hypocrisy. And then, like, I Google it, and fucking Google's like hypocrisy. Some hypocritical, right? Like it'll have the definition. I don't know the exact definition of hypocrisy. I just know within context what it means, which is how most of my understanding of language tends to exist. And I think most people's does as well. I mean, hypocrisy is like the actual like noun that can be attributed to being hypocritical, right? And being hypocritical is being generally inconsistent with your beliefs, contradicting yourself, that sort of thing. All right, let's just grab Libra and Tech 25 and Spider Bite. And Tech 5 will never shoot because it never wants to shoot. But anyway, yeah, I mean that's Isaac. We're done. Thanks for watching. That was a very bizarre episode with many tangents. I hope we actually reached a coherent conclusion at the end of it. I did in my brain. I hope you did in your brain. If you didn't, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. I do read them all, and I appreciate every single one of you on a deep, deep level. And maybe some of you, I'd suck your dicks, and, that's, I mean, that has nothing to do with Binding of Isaac, so I'll end the episode here, and, anyway, yeah, that's,